What's up, guys? It's Val, and welcome to another episode of my Relational Mentorship podcast, where I get to bring in guests on my podcast and we talk about what has been the relationship life like and what are some tips that we listeners can take from their life in order to apply that to our own personal future romantic relationship in order to help foster successful relationships. So, for today's episode, I have a special guest with me, and I'm going to let her introduce herself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Julieta. I am a college student. I'm an innovator, a sister, a daughter, a wife, and I'm happy to be here.
Wow. So, Julieta,
Mhm.
what has been your relationship life like ever since, let's say, let's start in high school? What has been dating like for you?
Yeah, so I started dating pretty young, not gonna lie, but I found my prince charming, you would say, in high school. So we
Mm,
started dating. We were both in band, so we met in band, and we started dating ever since my freshman year. He was a sophomore. It was pretty serious. It was just us, really committed relationship. Even though we were in high school, it was just, very committed. And then, yeah, ever since now, like we've been together. We've been happily married by 2 years already and dating
mm.
for 7 total. Yeah,
Wait. So you need to tell me that you've been in a 7-year relationship,
I have.
started in high school,
Yes,
freshman year.
2013.
Wow. Okay,
Mhm.
so the question is, right? How did that relationship last? Because usually in high school, like you just dead around, you get to know like, what you don't like. So what would you say has been the secret to actually maintaining such a young relationship to the point where you guys were able to actually get married?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. I often ask myself this too because I'm like, how did we like make it? But honestly, I think it's a mix between just being really lucky. I think it has to do with like the right person at the right time, finding them and like they're in your same hometown. It's like it's really hard to find someone from your hometown that you're gonna be with forever. Like it's just the odds are very slim. So one, it's just we really just got blessed to meet each other. But the other half would be just I think it's important that because we both come from very healthy families. So his parents are happily married by 30 years. And then my parents are also have been happily married for around 20. And so we grew up kind of seeing what a healthy relationship looks like. And so for us, we were pretty mature. Honestly, I've always been very mature compared to people my age and my friends. And so for me, I was very like just I felt older even though I was like 15. I felt really like just older. And so it was also good because we grew up together, but we didn't
Mm,
really even though we changed obviously because now I'm 20 and I was like 14, we've changed in so many ways, but we grew like together and it just worked. So even though we grew, it was good. Like it wasn't too different to where we're like, "Oh, you're a completely different person than when I met you."
mm. Wow, yeah, that makes sense. So then, so my question would be, right? You guys
Mhm.
started dating in high school, and then you guys got to college. So why did you decide to get married like so soon though? Because like you said, you are 20, right?
Mhm.
So how old is your husband again?
He just turned 22. And
Okay.
so we're like a year and some months apart. So I turned 21 in a couple months. And so yeah, so we ever since I would say 2 years into our relationship, I was like, yeah, like this is the man I'm gonna marry. And we've always been very like engaged.
Wow.
I know it's like a long time, but I mean, when you're 15, like, you're just like, ah, like he's just cute. But then it's like the year goes on, you're like, dang, like it's already been 1 year. And then it's like, dang, it's been 2 years. Like, okay. And then that's when we started thinking, like, yeah, like, okay, let's think about our future. And
Mm,
so we've always been, and then that's when we started going to church together and we started doing a lot of things like that. We started talking about goals and what does our future look like just to make sure that they align and they
mm,
did align, so we're like, okay, I'm comfortable like moving forward because it's a big decision. It's not just like your boyfriend. It's like this is a person that you're gonna be with forever. Like you're gonna
mm,
help you, like they're gonna help take care of you when you're old and dying, and they're gonna be there for like your happy moments. Like this is like a very important decision. And so we decided probably like my senior year of high school, like, yeah, okay, this is gonna like you're the one, you know, like you've been the one, you're going to be the one. We've had all those hard conversations, and then I started college, kind of got the flow of that, and then we knew we wanted to get married, but the reason why we kind of like rushed into it was just so we could, I guess, like move out, and then also so I could get like my residency, you know, because I wasn't documented. And so I was like, you know, might as well just do it now. Like, we're gonna get married anyways, so let's just start like the process of like me getting my like my residency, because you know my parents were also undocumented, so I was more worried for them. And so Joseph, he's been really supportive in that, and he's like, no, like I want you to feel safe. Like, I had a lot of anxieties because of my status, my immigration status. So he's like, no, I want to take care of you and your family. Let's just get married right now. Like, we, you know, we're gonna be together anyways. Let's just get married now. Let's get you all fixed, so then your parents could be all good, and then you could just not like worry. Because I was having like a lot of anxiety over it. And so I guess that was like also the main motivator of like why so soon.
Wow. Okay, I see. So how did your family react though to you guys' relationship in the beginning? And how did the perspective either change or stay the same as of right now, seeing that you guys actually made it to marriage?
Yeah, so that's actually funny because there was one guy before Joseph, and I took him over to kind of because I'm very close to my parents, and so I wanted him to ask my parents if I could, you know, date him. And so he asked my parents were like, no, like you cannot date my daughter. And so when Joseph came around, I was like, let's just not ask my parents, like let's just start dating. And so it's funny because they never really like, I never asked them to like if I could date them, because I mean I was young, and so in my head I was like, I have to ask my parents. But yeah, they loved him. I mean, we were both in like every extracurricular. Like, we met in band, and so band was like a full-time job. Like, it was crazy. And so we were always together there. We went to the same church, obviously same school, and so our parents knew each other because of band, and so they got really close, and like they liked each other because, you know, if parents like each other, it's like it's gonna work, because then there's like no drama and stuff. So yeah, like they always loved him. And then ever since and then he went off to college, but he was still at home, so it wasn't any different. It changed when I went to college because I moved out, and then that's when it got more serious, because we're like, okay, now it's like we're both adults in college, like, you know, gotta make it official. And then our parents never said anything. Like, they're super supportive. And then when Joseph asked his parents, he's like, you know what, I want to marry Julie. And they're like, yeah, like we thought you were gonna ask sooner. Like, they were super like, okay, yeah, like no shit. Like, they were like, what, like I thought you would never ask. Like, they were super supportive. Like, they love me, like I love his family, we're super close. And then when Joseph asked my dad for like his hand, or like, I guess
your hand,
yeah, my hand, or whatever that's called. Yeah, my dad was super supportive, and he's like, thank you, like you're like my son. Like, it was honestly like really amazing. I'm just lucky that we have a really good relationship, so there wasn't any difference or anything bad.
I find it very hard to think that it was all smooth sailing. So there must have been some times where you guys definitely thought about just breaking up and exploring different things. Has that ever happened to you guys, or was it just like a Disney movie type of relationship?
Honestly, okay, I would say like 80% is like a fairy tale. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I like pinch myself now, but now it's different because we are older, and it's like it's easier because, you know, we're older and stuff. But and when he was going off to college, that's when he was graduating. So I was a junior and he was a senior in high school. That was when we were kind of like, okay, do we want to do this? Because once you graduate, it's like, you know, you have access to like everyone, like, you know, to school. And I was like, yeah, we're really understanding. So the thing about me is I'm very understanding and patient, and like so is he. We understand each other's needs, and we give the space to like, you know, kind of talk about that. So I was like, do you kind of want to explore around? And like, and he was like, no, like you're all I want, like I don't want that. And I was like, okay. So then that's when like the trust came in. I was like, okay, I have to trust him, and like, you know. And so we did contemplate breaking up because he was going to college, but then we just talked about it, and we're like, no, like we have to make it work. Like, we're committed, like it's gonna work out. And so other than that, like, no, there hasn't been any bums. I mean, besides like petty stuff because you're young, but then it's like I don't even remember them. But yeah.
So then the question becomes, how do you guys maintain trust for the 7 years?
Yeah, it's honestly a lot about just like respecting each other. I take a lot of like what my parents how they treat each other, and like that honestly is like how it's like
So how do they treat each other?
yeah, so it's just basically a foundation of like respect, like just being open, because you know love is like being able to be vulnerable, like your best, I mean your most like authentic self, and then that person bringing like the best version out of it. And so in my parents I see a lot of patience, respect, sacrifices, right? Like love is sacrifice. And so just like those values were easy to instill because I grew up with them, and so it was easy to be respectful to him, and then it was easy for him to be respectful to me because that's how like his parents are as well. And so, and it's also important to keep dating each other, right? So even though you're married,
What does that
even though
mean?
you're committed, it basically means like you still have to go on dates and stuff, right? So it's like just because you're, you know, you have a ring, or just because like he's my boyfriend, like you still have to like impress one another, right? It's not like you get the ring and it's like I'm gonna be in sweats all day. Like no, like I still want to dress up and like impress him, because that's like what keeps the love going, you know, like oh, like you, I don't know, just little things like that, like a lot of compliments. And I think understanding love language is also important too.
So what are his love language, and how do you speak them?
Yeah, so our love languages are actually the same, so that makes it easier. So it's physical touch, time. His are physical touch and time, and then mine is more so physical touch and acts of service. And so we've been working really good at that. So like for me it's like I know I could like serve myself dinner, but like can you do it for me, because you know. And then with him it's like just spend all day with me, and like he's happy with just that because it's time, you know.
Wow.
So because they're very similar, it's easy. We basically just do the same thing, and then it works for like both of us.
Have there ever been a time where you guys have ever feared infidelity in between you guys, like cheating? So there's never been any like drama where somebody?
No, never. No, I mean, no, like we're pretty mature. So like even I remember in high school I was like, why do you still follow your exes on Instagram? And then I was like, I sound so stupid right now. Like he doesn't talk to them. Like, you know what I mean? It's like we all from the same hometown. Everyone's parents know each other. So it's like I get it, but it's not like they talk, you know? It's just
okay.
I used to unfollow them because it bugged me, but then I kind of realized I'm like, that's so like insecure of me to like say that, you know? But no, there hasn't.
Okay, I understand. Are you a traditional woman, or do you have you assimilated the mindset of the modern American woman?
That's a good question. So I would say I'm actually recently I noticed that I'm beginning to be more like traditional in senses of kind of like for us it's like important to replicate like a biblical marriage, but at the same time in today's age it's hard to do a lot of that because we have really big goals and we have really big dreams and desires, and it's hard to do that under just one income. And so it's not like I could just be, you know, stay-at-home wife and like do this.
Okay,
it's like I have my own career.
What do you want to be? Do you want to be a housewife, or do you want to be a modern day working woman?
Both. So in my 20s I definitely want to slave away to the workforce and build my career up, so then when I want to have kids, which is like 30s, I could afford to stay at home because I don't want to work while having kids. So I would love to be a quote unquote stay-at-home wife once I'm 30, because I know I don't have to worry about like finances because we have such big dreams and goals, right? Like I know today I could do that. I know that he could take care of us, but the way in which we want to live, it's yeah.
So I'm guessing that you don't want a big family, because if you want to start having kids in your 30s, I mean,
just two, you know.
Okay, because I was gonna say if you want to have kids in your 30s, then that means you might have complication, you know, because that's when you become less fertile as time goes on. So
it's usually at 40. Like I know mostly all the women in my life have had their kids at 30. So for me, I mean, our thing is like it doesn't have to be 30. It's just whenever we're financially confident to where we're like, okay, we don't have to work right now because we want to be around our kids. I know I could have kids tomorrow, but we still have to work, and I don't want to work while having kids, and I also want him to be present, you know. So it's like a mix of both.
Okay, then so let's look at feminism.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think has been feminism's role in modern relationship, and do you think it has positively impacted romantic relationships, or do you think that it has negatively impacted romantic relationships? And when I say feminism, I mean like feminism is one that like has encouraged the idea of the women working more, having more focus on working women than being housewives. That's what I mean. Or and like without the need of a man, basically.
Yeah. I would say both, but I would say the positive impacts is it allows men to understand. Like, I have a large group of girlfriends who we've gone through things with, whether it's like public sexual assault, things like that. Like the other day, Joseph, we went to go get groceries and he parked all the way in the back in like the dark corner, and I was like, why are you parking here? And he's like, we could just walk. And I was like, it's because you're a guy, like you're not scared to, walk at night in the dark. And so he saw my perspective. He's like, oh, you know what, like you're right, like I never really thought about it. And so without having like that perspective, he wouldn't, like, I guess, think about it. So I guess that's like the positive. But then the negative would be like this mentality of like fuck all men, which is kind of also like rooted with like daddy issues, I feel like.
Daddy issues, what do you mean by that?
Just because like when you grow up with healthy men around your life, you see their value, so it's like for me, like I adore my dad. Like he's been such a strong foundation to our family, and he represents like what a man should truly be, right? But opposed to someone that grew up without a dad or with an abusive father, it's easy for them to find toxic men and then think, oh, all men suck, because they don't know what it's like to have a good men figure in their life. So for me, it's really easy to identify toxic men and healthy men because I grew up with healthy men and I know my worth. I know how I'm supposed to be treated versus this, like, other
so how exactly are you supposed to be treated?
Just with respect, like, just taken care of like with respect, and just, no one should yell at you in a relationship. Like there shouldn't be any hitting or any abuse. And other girls, I think that's normal because they grew up with the father who's very abusive, and so they seek abusive partners.
Okay, so question. You said that there is such a thing as a healthy male. So in your opinion, what makes a good man?
Yeah, so
and how do you identify such a man?
See, that's a hard question because I think everything is like subject. Like it's not black or white, especially with so many people living in this world. Like it can't just be one answer. But for me personally, like in what I look in a man and how I would raise my son would be someone that's a leader, someone who's charismatic, someone who very much like lion characteristics, right? Like they take in people before them, right? So like a lion, like you take care of your family before you, all of the people you love, their needs come before yours. That's how, that's how it'd be. You take care of your family, the leadership, you make sure everyone's like fed, happy, your wife's happy, and then vice versa. It's just, that's how I would raise like my son, like you put your wife before you put me, your mom.
Wow. Wow. Okay. I see you. It's cool. Like I've never heard like a woman speak the way that you speak.
Really?
When it comes to like manhood and how they would raise their son. So that's kind of like something new. But then the inverse question would be, how then would you raise your daughter?
Honestly, I feel like that'd be, I don't know, to be honest, because
okay, well, let's ask this question. What makes a good woman?
But that's also like there's no one good woman. It's just whatever like their partner would want out of them, because even today, if like my daughter, I could raise my daughter a certain way, in a way that is desirable to like how a man would, but what if she wants to date a woman? Like it's just different, so it's like I don't know, to be honest. I think a woman should just be very like supportive. I mean, men and women should be supportive, but we have differences. that we should take advantage of, right? Like we are equal, but it's things come easier to us and then things come easier to men, and that's why it's just easier to portray those characteristics. Like for me, it's easier to be nurturing than my husband because biologically I have way more estrogen, and so you could do both. Like you know, I totally believe men and women are equal. It's just easier for me to have those traits because they just come naturally.
When you say equal, equal in what way?
Equal in just ways like in society, like lifestyle way. So I think relationships, I'm speaking out of my personal opinion and how I think and like the way that my relationship is healthy because we have those values. But not everyone wants to get married, you know, not everyone wants to have a family, and so they wouldn't follow the same rules, and that's totally okay. I don't think everyone should be married or have kids anyways. So
Wait, hold up. What? Why do you think that not everyone should be married and have kids?
Because some people just can't handle it. Like one, they don't want to, so then they're not responsible enough. And I would hate to have a child grow up in a world where their parents never raised them right, or they weren't fed enough because their parents are too poor. Like, you get me? It's like, yeah, it's cool, but at the same time, like, we have way too many people in the world. Like, and the people are not responsible. And so I don't think it should be like a must. You have to be like really like secure to have kids and actually raise them right.
Does he love you?
Huh?
Does he love you?
Yes, I hope so. No, yeah, he does. He
How do
really
you know?
does. He shows his love in so many ways. Obviously, like through our love languages, like every morning he writes me like a little note, like just like a little note before he leaves to work. I think that's super cute. And they're all like different. And so
can we get to know what the notes for today said?
This one said, "Have a kick-ass day. I love you." So it was a little like motivation. So things like that, and then also compliment me. Just take the time. Like when I'm frustrating, just take the time. He's like, the other day, he's like, "I notice whenever you get frustrated, you like get anxious, and so like the way to calm you down, I notice, is like just like to give you a hug." And so he gives me a lot of hugs. So, but it's like because we communicate that, you know, it's not just like us trying to figure out what's wrong with each other. If there's like, if we're, you know, heated or something good, we like stop. We're like, okay, why are we mad? Like, why are we arguing? And then we're like, this is stupid. And then we, you know.
Okay, so what is love to you?
Good question. To me, it kind of goes with like what the Bible says, like Corinthians, like love is proud, like love protects, trust, hope. Love never fails, it perseveres. Love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast. So that's like, you know, straight out of like Corinthians, and I totally believe that. But love is also sacrifice, right? So putting their needs sometimes in front of yours, the sacrifice and the patience. Sometimes I'm not patient, but I'm like, you know what? I love him. I have to put, you know, maybe I don't want to eat this for dinner, but he really wants to eat it for dinner. So like, I guess we're eating this for dinner, like, you know, and it's kind of like, and then taking turns, you know. So that's love, just letting each other be like your most authentic self. And then also have like your responsibility is to let their kind of let their best self come out of, you know. So it's like my job as like a friend or like wife or whatever, like whenever you're with me, like I want the best version of yourself to come out, right? And so that would be my definition.
Is love all that is necessary to build a healthy relationship, or are there other things that is necessary in order to build a relationship?
Yeah, there's definitely other things. Love is very broad because like there's so many characteristics within, like I just said, patience, it perseveres, protects, you know. But you also need, at least for me, like you need balance. So someone who could call you like your bullshit's out and be like, don't do this, but like in private, you know, like like they stand up for you, and then like in private they're like, okay, low-key, like don't, like we shouldn't do that.
Okay,
someone who could just like, I guess that's like talking about goals is also important because they could kind of keep you on track. So that's why I think the good thing about like going back to feminism is it allows different circles of your life influence. So like for the reason for like a big part of like our relationship that it makes it really healthy is we have like, he hangs out with his friends and then I have time to hang out with my friends, and I think that's really healthy because you can't put all your marbles in a bag and expect to get everything out of one person. You can, it's just really hard. Like realistically, as humans, we need a community, you know. And so having friends who could, you know, help you with things that you're going through, or just kind of like, you know, hear you out or things like that. Like I'm not gonna ask him like, oh, does this color look good on me? Like he doesn't know, he's a guy, he knows nothing about like fashion, right? So it's like just having friends to like also support, that's also important, like healthy.
Okay, so question, when it comes to you guys' friendship, are you allowed to have a male best friend? And is he allowed to have a girl best friend?
So we never, okay, so like we have a group, so like we hang out in he has his guy friends, which is just like his guys, I have just my girlfriends, and then we have like one common big group that we all hang out with, and it's like girls and boys, but we don't have like, I don't have one guy best friend and he doesn't have one girl best friend, and I don't think we would. It's not that I'm like, oh, that's not allowed, it's just I don't think it would happen, and if it does, it would be like part of our group, you know, it wouldn't be like just one guy or girlfriend. So whenever we do hang out with like opposite sexes, it's like in the group, you know.
Okay, so one thing I wanted to ask you is, now that you are married, I'm pretty sure most of your friends are probably not married.
Yeah.
So how do you maintain a friendship with people that are not married and still be able to relate to them in the phase of life that you're, because the problem that you have with your marriage is not going to be the same problem that they have with their boyfriend or girlfriend and stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely. It's different. So I only talk about like it's hard to talk about like your relationship, like how you said, with people who aren't married. And so most of my friends are, though, in like a very committed relationship. Like my best friend, she's in a like 5-year relationship. So even though they're not married, it's like, you know, we both started in high school and now they're in college together. It's kind of similar, but it's not the same. And so I think just finding like a core group of like married couples, it's something that we still have to figure out. But it's not something that's like high priority, you know, that like, oh, we need someone who's exactly like us to understand us. But like our friends are super understanding. And I don't think, and even if you do find like a perfect married couple, like their situation would be way different than yours. So it's probably not even gonna, you know.
Okay, so in your relationship, who wears the paint?
Ooh, that's a good question. Honestly, it depends. Like mostly him, but it depends. Like I'm more like the outgoing social person. I'm very extroverted. I like going places. He could stay home all day, right? And so for me, I'm like, no, let's do this. Let's hang out with my friends, hang out with your friends. Like I'm the one calling the shots when it comes to like that type of stuff.
So you take care of the relationship social life, basically.
Yeah, I mean he does too, but I act more of like the leader of like, let's do this with this person at this time, and he was like, yeah, I'll just show up, you know, like he's just more like, yeah, you do that. And then yeah, we like pretty much, I mean it's mostly him, like that's like also like how I like it, but I have a very strong personality, and so it's hard for me to like,
what do you mean by strong?
Just very like outgoing. Like I'm just very like bubbly. I have like a lot of opinions. I'm a leader in every other aspect, like in my work, at my school, like in every aspect. Like I just have leadership experience, and like I like being a leader, and so it's really hard for me to like kind of take a step back, but I try to.
Okay, then so let's talk about that. Do you submit to your man?
Yeah.
And what is submission to you?
Yeah, so honestly, I feel like I don't really like that word, because I like the definition is like very, I feel like a lot of people nowadays define it as something that's like it's not. So like my definition of submission, and like what I think it truly is like putting your partner's needs sometimes before yours, like just putting people before yours. Like even if you're a parent, like you always feed your child first, you know. So it's kind of like in that way of like when you submit to your partner, it could sound kind of like aggressive, because it makes it sound like, oh, like obedience, but it's like, no, like we're each our own person. But when it has to do with like other things, like now that we live together, or like our finances, like he completely controls that, and I'm like, yeah, do that. Like I don't want to do that, you completely do it. Like that's his field, his career field anyways, so he knows what he's doing, and I completely trust him. And other things, like we split a lot of chores, just because, like I said, I don't know. It just works. Like I'm like, I hate taking the trash out, but I don't mind cleaning the bathroom. So I'll clean the bathroom and you do like everything else.
Wow.
And like it works. That's the thing that like it works. Maybe it's not like, I think it's because also my parents and his parents are like completely like, I guess if you want to follow like gender roles, like they have like switch positions. And so for
What do you
us,
mean
like,
they switch position?
so like my mom does like our finances just
Okay.
because she has more patience. She could sit in front of a computer and do all that stuff, and she understands, you know, credit cards way more than my dad, right?
Okay.
And then his mom also pays their bills. It's not like with her money, but like she sits down and she organizes the finances. And his mom's the one that is also like the one that like plans every event, versus like both of our dads are like the chefs. Like, I mean, my dad grew up, his dad was owned a restaurant, and so of course my dad is going to love cooking, and then my mom doesn't really like cooking, and so of course he's going to take that role on because he likes it. You don't have to always fall into the gender roles just because that's just how it is, right?
So for you, do you subscribe to gender roles, or do you subscribe to gender roles, or you don't?
I feel like I naturally fall in them, but without thinking about it. It's not like I'm like, okay, I'm a woman, therefore I should do this. No, I think I just naturally tend to fall more in them because I'm very feminine and I love just being taken care of.
Okay, so with that said though, however, do you think that there are things that a man should do that a woman shouldn't do, even if she can or wants to do it in a relationship? So do you think that a man should provide, protect, and the woman should be the sweet, soft, and support?
I mean, that's also going back to like everyone's relationship is different. I'm not going to say this is how it should be, and I'm not saying this is the only way successfully to do it. It's just because we are, you know, very faith-based, this is like what I want to follow, right? But like my friends who are untraditional, I'm not gonna be like, oh, you're wrong. No, like if it works, it works. You know, I'm not denying
But
it.
does it work?
It can work. It's just
do you have evidence of it working though?
Well, for me, yes. So like for us, it works because even though he's more dominant in a lot of areas, it's because I allow him to be. Because like I said, I'm like a leader in like every aspect. I know I could do everything, but I'm like, you know, I shouldn't, because why do I have to? Like, you know? And so, but I'm not going to say there's one answer. I don't think there's any one answer in anything.
Okay. So in your opinion, growing up in that one relationship for so many years and looking at all your other friends that maybe has not had the same success that you have had in their relationships, what would you say has been the key problems that you have seen with others' relationships that has caused the downfall of so many relationships?
Yeah, so I think it kind of has to play with like modern dating, like the idea of, I guess, people think that your partner has everything. Like you're gonna meet them, the first date's gonna go perfect, and then you guys get married next week, and then there's gonna be never any problems. But I think just being realistic. So even though we have a good relationship, we're still realistic. Like we're both human beings. Like we're gonna make mistake, and like we're still growing up. So we have the patience and we have the understanding of knowing like things are probably going to go wrong, but it's okay because we have a very strong foundation, versus other people that are very involved in like modern dating and stuff like that. They kind of expect a lot of their partner without like working for it. So you have to work for a lot of your things. Like I know when we first started,
what do you mean by working for it though?
I guess just like communication. So like for me, like I have more like I guess like I was going through more stuff because you know, being like an immigrant and like growing up undocumented, like that put a big toll on me. And so I would get not sensitive, but I would get kind of triggered when we would talk about like immigration and stuff like that, just because it hits so close to home, versus he doesn't have to think about it because he's a citizen, so he never gets like triggered. So whenever we're in those situations, it's just talking about like, okay, could we like ignore the topic because it like kind of like ruins like the moment for me. And so just kind of like talking through those things, that's like what you have to work towards. Like he can't read my mind, and a lot of people today kind of expect their partner to like read their mind, but it's like you have to say what you want. Like if you want me to submit to you in a certain area, like tell me, because like I can't read your mind, right? So
wow. Yeah. So some of the things that you say are wrong with today's modern dating is people expect too much of their partner, and they
Too
expect that the
soon.
partner can read what they're thinking, so they don't communicate well.
Yeah, and they like it's too soon. Like it takes a while to build a foundation. And sometimes I feel like I notice nowadays, not so much my friends, but more like just like social media and like what I hear through
Mm.
like peers, it's like once they don't like something, they just leave without working for it. Like without working with, so
Mm.
like for example, like the problem of like um for example, let's say I don't like when you do this. So instead of me leaving, like, oh, screw that, I don't like when he does that. Modern dating, I feel like it kind of encourages like to leave the partner right away versus like
Mm.
I'm like, no, like let's work towards it. And then once you work towards it and it doesn't work out, okay, then you could, leave.
Wow. Okay,
Like you
then
have to
so
work towards it.
so in your opinion, why do you think marriages, not just relationship, but marriages, are at an all-time high in terms of divorces?
Mm-hmm. I have a couple of opinions on this. I'm obviously newly married, so I don't know. I'm so young, but from what I see and what I hear, and like I guess it would be because people don't. Everyone says communication, but what does that mean? Like communication in, it's very important to talk about your wants and your needs. So if, like for us, it's like before we got married, we said, do we want kids? Yes or no? That was a big thing. We agreed. Okay, yes, we want kids. Because I know a lot of people who got
Mm.
divorced because they got married. It's all sweet and cute. And then it comes time to like having kids.
uh,
And then one of them's like, oh, you know what? I don't want it. Like you have to talk about that beforehand. So a lot of people, even though it's like pretty obvious, a lot of people don't talk about that beforehand. They don't talk about, are you in debt? Like, do you have like any criminal history? Like people don't talk about that stuff, surprisingly. And so communication in that way, like what are your wants? Like for me, I'm like, okay, when I'm 30, 40, 50, this is how I want my life to look like. Like could you match that? Like would it
mm.
make sense? Like if I want to live in a city and he wants to live in a barn, maybe it's not going to work out, right? So it's like talking about that beforehand
Mm.
is so important. So for us, the reason why it's been so good is because we actively know what each other wants. Like I know exactly, today I know what his vision looks like because we share that.
Mm.
So I know how to work towards it because we share it. So I think
Wow.
that's really important. And then also like fidelity is like another big issue, but I think that just roots back to like how you were raised. Did you have a good role model in your
So
life?
why do you think people cheat?
Um, that's a good
Well,
question.
let's talk about as a woman. Why do you think women cheat?
Um, I don't know, to be honest. Maybe I don't know. Maybe it could be, I mean, what everyone says, it's like, oh, your needs aren't being matched, but I feel like that should just be communicated. That should just be expressed. Like I said,
Mm.
if your needs aren't being met, that's totally fine. Okay, but let's talk about it. Like, how could I meet you there? What could I do to make you feel, wanted or supported, whatever that way, so you don't cheat? And then if I can't do that,
Mm.
then instead of cheating, just break up with me. Like, why do you have to cheat? Like, you know what I mean? It's like you're cutting, like, it's just very coward, if you don't like what
Yeah.
I'm doing, okay, that's fine, like I totally understand, like whatever, then let's
Okay,
just break
so
up. Like
so why is it so hard for people to communicate though? Because like all this thing you say like sounds so amazing on paper, like it just sounds like it works. But so
yeah,
why is it so difficult for people to just come to their person and say, this is what I need, this is what I expect from you, can you give me that, and
yeah,
what are your needs and wants, so that I know if I can give you that? Because for me, that's how I go about things. But like, why is it so hard for the majority of people to do so?
yeah. So that's actually a really good question. So actually, like statistically and what's it called, psychologically,
Mm-hmm.
it's because of how you were raised.
Mm.
So me being a sociology major, I often study relationship dynamics, parental dynamics, family dynamics,
Mm.
and it's because you were raised with an absent parent, or you see maybe, your older sibling's boyfriend cheats on her and she stays with him. So then you grow up like, you know what?
Mm.
That's normal. So then when your boyfriend cheats on you, you're like, it's okay. My older sister's boyfriend cheated on her and it's normal. Like they're so
Wow.
happy. And so it's just like you grow, we're all like, child development is the most important thing. Like once the way you grew up kind of sets you up for your entire life. And so having present parents is so important, which is going back to the topic of why I think not everyone should have kids, is because a lot of people have so much
Okay.
trauma, you know, and they don't go to therapy. And it's like, you have to get rid of your traumas before you bring like a human in this life. Like,
Wow, wow, wow.
so I
Yeah.
think that's the main reason.
Okay. Wow, yeah. That makes total sense. So for you then, which type of parenthood would you be an advocate for? A two-parent household or one-parent household?
I mean, ideally a two-parent household. I know sometimes you can't control it. I mean, my mom grew up with a single mom, and it was really hard for her. So when it was very important for her to have a really healthy marriage, because her development and her like womanhood really affected because she didn't have a father, and she saw her mom like slave away because her mother was like basically never present for her because she had to work. Like you know, you have to pay for things.
Yeah.
And so when you have a two-parent household, it's good because even though like you just need someone to pick up the kids from school, you need someone to make them lunch and dinner, you need someone to work to pay the bills, you need some, like, you just need options. And then I think why marriages nowadays are also failing, or maybe not marriages but families, like back then, like, you know, the saying like it takes a village to raise a kid. In a lot of cultures and like back in the day, everyone lived together. Like it's, you know, basically every other culture, but like Americans, they still live with their family. And so it's really easy to raise kids even if you're a single parent, because you know your aunts, your cousins, your mom, your dad helps you. But now, and like especially in America where we're very like career focused, everyone's moving around, right? So it's like, I grew up in Southern California, but maybe I want a career in New York. So who's my village? You know, it's just me and my husband. It's not like my mom could help me because we're in a different state. So I feel like that also has to do with like family dynamics, is like location wise.
Okay. So one of the other things that has plagued modern dating, as you know, is the hookup culture. So in your opinion, what do you think of the hookup culture? Do you think it is beneficial to us as a society, relationship wise, or do you think it has contributed to the detriment of modern day relationships?
I feel like I'm not like a really good spokesman on this because I've never participated in hookup culture, so I don't really know. But I could see both sides. I could see the side to where it encourages like a healthy, I guess like a healthy outlook on like sex and like your preference, and it kind of helps you understand that. And I can see the negatives because, you know, sex is also very like intimate and emotional. I think it just depends the way you go with it. A lot of people hook up with someone and then they like fall in love, but it's like that's not the intent of it. It's just very casual. And so those type of people I feel like shouldn't be involved in it, because it's like, you know, but then other people are just like, they just hook up, they don't even know your name, they forget everything about you, and then they just move on. So like when those two people come together, one of them is like completely, you know, they're just like, I'm just here for like hookup and then that's it. And another person is like, yeah, me too, but then like they still have like emotions, and then I feel like that just causes problems. So I don't know. I mean, it works for a lot of people, but it also doesn't work for a lot because people just get emotionally attached.
So from a sociological point of view, and from what you've been able to study so far, so what do you think makes for a more successful relationship when it comes to sex and intimacy? Having sex and intimacy before marriage or after marriage? Which one creates the best success in a relationship long term?
I mean, that's something that I haven't studied. Like I haven't studied that, like but I have studied like, you know, how the sex and intimacy does affect relationships. So it is a big part of it, but I don't know the answer of like before, after. I think it just stems in like your morals and your religion, and if you have a strong faith base, and like you were more likely to wait until after. But if you have no religion or no specific values, you kind of see it as like, what's the point? You know, so I see both sides. Some people want to, you know, test drive a car before they buy it, and then some people don't.
But okay, with that thing, to test drive the car, I mean, even just that sounds like it doesn't sound right. Don't you think? I mean, I know. Because it would be like testing like you just tasting of the person to see if you like it, and then if you don't like it, then you go somewhere. So Don't you think like with that much testing, people are going to get broken and hurt since
Yeah.
they say that sex has that emotional connection with the person?
Yeah, but I feel like if you're in like the hookup culture just solely for like, okay, you know what, I just need to get laid, like, and like that's your only intention, then I guess it could work as long as like the person you're with doesn't like creepily fall in love with you, because that's not like what you were there to do. But like I said, it just goes back to like faith and like morals, because if you are going to wait after marriage, like, because some people just involuntarily, they just never have sex because they just haven't found like anyone, like they just haven't found the opportunity. But people who actually intentionally wait afterwards, in my opinion, it's heavily because of like faith based, because they know that that person is more than just like physical, versus other people don't have like those certain morals or values, and they don't see more to it, you know what I mean? They're just like, oh,
Yeah,
like everyone does it, it's normal, like.
I see. So in your opinion, to close, what do you think that us men can start doing in order to fix modern dating, in order to raise the standard of relationships?
Yeah, honestly, it would just be like respecting like yourself, and then just like women, because oftentimes I see men always like just kind of like, oh, what's it called, like a thirst trap, like they post thirst traps, or like they slide into DMs, and it's like, if you want girls to respect you, like you gotta respect them, like respect yourself, you know. And so if you want a woman that has all these, you know, holy values, you have to portray yourself with that, right? You can't like post pictures shirtless and do all these things and expect a girl to like be opposite of that, to approach you, because they're not. You know,
Okay, so
like
then
match the energy you want to.
wow, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense.
And then
So
like, why would we go towards someone that's not like how we want it? Like, we're not gonna go in there to try to fix you. Like, at least I'm not. You know.
Well, so then for the women, what do you think girls now they can do in order to help raise the standard of relationships?
I think it's just women who want to be in relationships. Like I said, just have to portray that. So if
Actually, are you sure though? Because see, the thing is, you cannot say the same thing with men, because the men that do want to be in a relationship can do these things. However, when people look at the men population, they see other bad stuff that the men do, and it overshadows the thing that the good men are doing. So therefore, I think that every man should do certain things in order to help raise the standard of dating though.
Well, yeah, so like the same thing. So it's like, for men, it would be, don't post thirst traps, like don't slide in girls' DMs while like you're actively looking for like a long-term relationship, because you're probably not going to find a long-term committed relationship with like certain values, like traditional values, I mean, by sending a girl like a hard eyes emoji. Like, that girl is like statistically not more likely to be less traditional if she replies to that than like not. So, but same thing with girls. Like, if girls are looking for a long-term relationship and someone who's very untraditional, then they would do the opposite. That makes sense. I feel like there's no right answer. It just depends what you're looking for. Some people just never want to settle down. They're just here for like the fun things.
Wow. Well, thank you so much, Julieta, for coming into my podcast. Thank you so much for answering the question and give us your honest opinion. So let's say somebody that's listening to the podcast want to be able to get in touch with you, you know, ask you further questions or get involved in anything that you are doing. How can they do so? And are there any other project that you are involved in right now that you would like to tell the audience about?
Yes, so you could find me on Instagram at Julieta, Julieta, 2_ Alvarado, Alvarado. I'm very active on social media. You can follow me on LinkedIn, same thing. I do have a podcast at my school called the Send Podcast. So if you are a fellow entrepreneur who wants to get interviewed by me about your entrepreneur journey, that's what I do. So I would love to interview you. But other than that, it was a pleasure to be here.
So yeah, so don't worry guys, I'm going to be putting all the links for her Instagram, her social media, and her podcast in the description of this episode when it comes out, so that you guys can go and follow her. So again, thank you, Julieta, for coming. And make sure you guys don't forget to like, subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, and follow the podcast on Spotify. And don't forget to donate to the Cash App, because all the proceeds will go into paying for the website hosting services for the podcast. And yeah, so thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace out.